Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. I am here, your host, Greg Thompson, joined by my partner in crime, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, how we doing?
I'm living the dream, man. We're that much closer to Christmas, and as all of our fans know, we love that time of year.
Absolutely. And tonight we are joined by special guest, Mark Schofield. Mark, how we doing?
Greg, Aaron, pleasure to be with you gentlemen just a couple of days before Christmas, and hopefully we'll all have a wonderful, happy holiday season in front of us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before we jump into all the fun, just want to do a quick reminder about all the exciting things we have going on over at cover1.net. Fantastic coverage. We have it sounds like a growing quadrant every day of people heading down to the Senior Bowl. I think we got a full squad, 4, 5, 6 guys heading down there to check everything out. Our draft coverage is going to be off the charts. Still following through with everything during the season and your matchups during the week. And if you want to take a look, my favorite part of that is the Cover One premium channel Slack. Aaron, what are your thoughts on the Slack channel?
I love it, man. Every day that thing is rip roaring. Obviously, there's not a ton of excitement on the Bills games right now this time of year, but obviously the development of the players. And I thought that it would die off a little bit with the holidays coming up and just not a lot of excitement about the record of the team. But I feel like it's just ramping up. New people are joining all the time. Just really good about the Bills, and I think we talk about it a lot here. It's not always agreements. It's not just a bunch of us homers sitting together saying like, yeah, Josh Allen's fantastic. I love Josh Allen. It's people kind of questioning each other to answer questions on why you think that way. And it's done in a really nice environment where Twitter sometimes, most of the time in my mentions, it's not done in that way. So I really appreciate having a place online where I can talk with Bills fans and it doesn't get to a place of personal shots and trying to one up the other one. It's just a nice, fun environment. And I absolutely love it. I have it up on my phone all the time, and it's just a great group of guys. So if you're looking for a fun environment like that, the Cover One Slack is the place to be.
That's great, man. And, it's a ton of fun. And Mark, before we jump into all the fun of this week's matchup, what kind of things do you have going on? Where can the people see your work?
Easiest way to follow me is on Twitter at Mark Schofield. Work for places like InsideThePylon.com, Pro Football Weekly, The Score, Matt Waldman's Rookie Scouting Portfolio, a Big Blue View, part of the SB Nation, where I cover the Giants and some quarterback stuff over there. And I am the host of the Locked On Patriots podcast, which kind of brings us to the main event of this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Normally when we do these previews, I have to kind of prep all kinds of questions, try to find, can I find something interesting? But the Daily News has presented that for us here. So, Mark,
something happened today?
I'll let you take it away. How are the psyche of Pats fans in the moment?
Greg, I have used this expression a couple of times today on a couple of different shows. Entering this season, the Patriots had what I sort of describe as the wall of uncertainty around the Patriots organization, because you had the rumors about Gronkowski entertaining the idea of retiring, that you had sort of Gronkowski being shopped around, stories about that. You had rumors about Tom Brady being like, look, if you trade him, I'm done. So there was a lot of uncertainty headed into this offseason. And today was just another brick in the wall of that wall of uncertainty, with Josh Gordon announcing, via social media that he's going to step away for mental health reasons. And then the report from NFL.com's Palm Pelissero, where apparently he's had another sort of setback in terms of the substance abuse issues. And so while we all of us wish the best for Josh Gordon, the human being, because, his life, his mental well-being, his health comes before football. This is not the news that Patriots fans wanted a couple of days before what has become a must-win game for them, because, this offense has sputtered at starts throughout this season. And Josh Gordon had, in bits and spurts, created some, more of a downfield element. He had done some stuff after the catch. He had become sort of a trusted weapon for Tom Brady, where at times throughout this season, 3rd and 7 situations, 4th down situations, he would look to Josh Gordon. And for a receiver to get himself inside the Brady circle of trust so quickly was something that a lot of Patriots fans haven't really seen. I mean, you look at some other big-time free agent acquisitions, like a Chad Ochocinco, for example, never seemed to get himself in the Tom Brady circle of trust. Gordon was there within a couple of games, if not like the first 2. And so losing that hurts. And then when you couple that with the news that came out later this afternoon that Patterson, who's probably going to be asked to sort of step up in his absence, missed practice today due to an illness, and that Rob Gronkowski now pops up again on the injury report, limited in practice with, yet again, a back injury. things are on shaky ground right now in New England. And I'm not coming here looking for any sort of sympathy because I'm certainly not going to get it. And I more than understand that. And that's fine. But look, emotions are a little bit raw in New England. And for Patriots fans that had to listen to, say, WEI today, I can only imagine what things were like.
Yeah, and it's tough. I mean, Aaron, what are your thoughts as far as the roller coaster of the psyche of the, Patriots rival, rival, it's a funny term, for those not rooting for the Patriots, what we've gone through and how you see what could be maybe a chink in the armor.
Yeah, not that I struggle with this, right? Because I don't want to wish anything bad on anyone. I don't love that karma being out there, but I'm cautiously optimistic in kind of Mark's presentation of that, and that the chink in the armor is there. And I have been watching him this year, and it doesn't feel the same way it's felt. I've watched this team closely as a kid that grew up in New England. I watched them every weekend because that's the game that's on. All my friends are New England Patriots fans, so I've been watching closely for my moment to strike, and it's just never been there. It never seems like the momentum's fading on that moment for them. But this year does feel different. I talked about it a little bit up on 590 The Fan. When they said, how long is this dominance going to rain on you guys? And I said, for the first time in my adult life, I do feel like maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I feel better about the demise of at least the Tom Brady Belichick era in New England. And I don't know if they'll be able to pick back up quickly after that or how that rebuild will go for them. But I don't think that this is the same team we've seen over the past 2 to 3 seasons. With that said, I think that they're still the team that's going to dominate the AFC East until somebody else does something, even going into next year with the problems that they have.
Yeah, and I think that obviously there's two sides to this. Obviously, you have the one historical reference. So you have the historical reference of when we started to see the smallest flaws and gaps from your Peyton Mannings, your Brett Favres, even Elway or Marino at the end, all-time great, amazing quarterbacks, that when you started to see the little bits of degradation and the little bits of loss, it happened really quickly. And the following season, it was off the cliff and bad news. Now, I think that there's obviously plenty of reason to assume that, obviously, not the cliche, but the TB12 method and all the things that go along with pliability and flexibility, I think there's reason to assume maybe he can avoid that precipitous fall off. And the two sides of the coin are going to be, is that the reason he's going to avoid the precipitous fall off? Or from a Bills fan or the other, as Mark put, the other 31 fan bases, is that the reason that he's gotten to 41 years old, and now at 41 years old, Father Time is undefeated and you can't pliability your way past that? So, I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see how things finish out the rest of the season. And, obviously going into next year, I don't think there's any reason to assume we won't see the core of that leadership back next year. There's reason, maybe Gronk with the injuries and things and the rumors before. But Mark, focusing more in on this week, what are your thoughts on who do you see stepping up? I know you mentioned Patterson. Do you maybe see a bigger role for James White? Do you think Gronk is ready for a more prominent role, more targets? How do you think they're going to approach what has been a pretty solid Bills defense?
Yeah, it's a fascinating question to consider when you see how the Bills defense has sort of grown, even since these two teams played each other back, whether it's week 8, week 9, I forget exactly when that was, to now. I'd imagine that they will carve out more of a role for James White. You can look at the splits and how the Patriots offense has performed when he sees, 10 touches or less or 10 touches or more. And it's staggering how much better this Patriots offense is when James White is involved as a focal part of both the passing game and sparingly used as a running back, running the football out of the backfield. And so I'd imagine that the first thing you're going to see is more involvement from James White. And if you remember, some Bills fans may remember, some fans may not, earlier in the season, there were some struggles from this offense when they lost those, 2 early road games at Jacksonville, at Detroit. And there was some question about the usage of James White. And Brady himself said, look, he's one of our better players. He needs to be involved more. And then you saw his usage sort of take off. They've gotten away from that over the past couple of weeks, whether it's the involvement of Rex Burkhead, whether it's running the ball more with Sony Michel. They've gotten away from James White. Josh McDaniels himself said this week, look, we got to get him involved more, and that's on me. I would be surprised if he sees less than 10 targets or maybe even 12 targets this week, whether it's a mix of, run and pass or just in the passing game, because he can do some things, similar to some other matchup nightmare type players around the league, like Tariq Cohen's and, other players that you can get the ball to them in space against linebackers, against safeties, and they pose a matchup dilemma. And he fits with what they want to do offensively, because let's not forget, look, this is a team that wants to get the ball out of Brady's hands quickly, get it to people in space, not really push it downfield except for some shots here and there. This is a more West Coast-ish based passing game. And that's what they need to do. That's how they protected Brady at times. And I'd imagine that's going to be a big part of their game plan on Sunday.
That actually scares me a little bit with, as Greg alluded to, the injury to Milano. Obviously, Tremaine Edmonds has had ups and downs this year, probably more downs than ups, even with the athleticism he poses. But teams have been able to trick him, get his aggressiveness to play against him. Tom Brady's seeing that on film with Josh McDaniels, and they're looking at that matchup saying, hey, we can get the guy that is our best player in space, in these bad matchups with some backup linebackers, maybe against a Lorenzo Alexander or, this rookie, and really do some things. And that you talking about that scares me in that sense.
Even beyond that, you add in Taron Johnson. That had, although a rookie, was a really steady, solid, intelligent nickel corner. We haven't really bridged that with another nickel corner. They've done more linebackers, more three safety looks with Raphael Bush, and I don't mind Raphael Bush when it's against Chris Herndon of the Jets, or when it's against trying to keep up with someone with the Dolphins. I don't want Raphael Bush trying to cover Julian Edelman. So I am concerned with how they're going to approach that. They did pick up Denzel Rice. He was active but didn't play a lot this past week. So I don't know who we're going to see in that nickel role if we do see that many snaps for Raphael Bush, but some combination of Julian Stanford, Corey Thompson, Lorenzo Alexander, Raphael Bush, Denzel Rice, that combination covering Gronk, Edelman, James White, I have to assume that's the primary focus of their game plan and isolating that matchup to be able to strike again and again and again. So I'm hoping that, Frazier and McDermott have been really sound with their halftime adjustments, with their game plans. I do think losing Gordon allows them to play a little bit more of the single high safety, bring Poyer down towards the line. Maybe we see Poyer going after White, covering Edelman, covering Gronk, and mixing that in. I like his athleticism there, but it's interesting to see how both teams are going to try to cover for the injuries, the issues, and as the NFL always is, it's a war of attrition. Who can survive there? And obviously, when your decision maker is Belichick and your executor, is Tom Brady, it's hard not to assume they're not going to find a way to be able to make that work. Flipping things around, Mark, obviously Bills fans have a very sensitive nerve to our rookie quarterback and the perception that he receives on social media. So I warn you to tread lightly, but what are your thoughts on what you've seen so far from Josh Allen?
Yeah, and I understand why Bills fans feel the way that they do. I mean, he was out there in shorts today at practice. It's going to endear him to all of the Bills fans. I hear Aaron sort of – yeah, I saw all the tweets today. I will preface what I'm about to say with the fact that, look, he was not my favorite quarterback in last year's draft class. I had serious reservations about Josh Allen and the development that he would need to make to be an effective NFL quarterback and to live up to where he was going to get drafted. Seeing him down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, look, you could see the ball pop out of his hands, but yet there were still the lingering issues that I had with decision-making, with touch, with placement, with all sorts of things that gave me serious pause about his ability to develop into an NFL quarterback. That being said, I have seen a lot from him that has left me very impressed about where he is right now and where he is going to end up, or at least will potentially end up as an NFL quarterback. I feel much more confident about his developmental path right now than I did this time last year. You look at, two of my favorite decisions that Josh Allen has made this year were two sort of no-throw decisions. One against Minnesota in that game that they won out in Minnesota, and one last week against Detroit, where Brian Daboll had schemed up some shots downfield. One was a sort of a switch concept against Minnesota. Last week, it was a wide throwback design against Charles Clay early in the game. Both of those were covered. On both of those, he looked at it, saw it was covered, then threw the ball away. Back in college, Josh Allen would have looked at that, said, okay, well, I'm going to roll out to the right, buy some time, and try to make a miraculous throw, and it would have gotten intercepted. So that right there is a sign that, look, he is learning, but lived up to the hype. It is certainly worth the hype. It is an elite arm. It is not going to bail him out of every situation here in the National Football League. He has learned to sort of take what the defense gives him at times and live for second down, third down. In addition, you see the development of some touch, some trajectory, some ability to take a little bit off the fastball. In college, everything was, every problem was a nail, and he had the hammer in his right arm, which was that fastball. Now he's learning to take a little bit off. There's a reason I comped him to Nuke LaLoosh last summer. It was the fact that he had the $1 million arm. He could throw the ball through the catcher's face mask, but he needed to learn to trust in himself, to take a little bit off, throw a curveball, throw a changeup. He's learning that as well. And then finally, Ryan Day, at National Signing Day just yesterday, had a great quote about when he was evaluating and recruiting quarterbacks. He said, all great quarterbacks have sort of one sort of, incredible trait, one sort of trump card. And we're seeing that with Josh Allen, his athleticism might be that. We might have thought it was his arm. It might be his athleticism. And Brian Daboll has basically played to that and basically said, look, if things aren't there, be you. Use your legs. Make something happen. And you've seen him run for over 100 yards in the last 2 games and then 99, I think, the week before that. And so you put that together, I think Buffalo has done a good job sort of developing him. He's shown some developmental prowess on his own. And if I'm a Bills fan, there's a reason why you guys are excited about him, and you should be.
Yeah.
Now, go on.
Yeah, no, keep talking.
No, I mean, I'm happy to keep talking. And I will say this. Patriots fans are nervous about him, and with good reason. Mobile quarterbacks have given the Patriots fits. You look back at week 1, Deshaun Watson, he was still coming back from the knee injury. They spent so much time that week and so much time in that game trying to contain him in the pocket. Guys like Mariota, look what Mariota did to them this year. Look at what Mahomes did to them. Look at what Mitchell Trubisky did to them. I mean, and you can go back last year and Deshaun Watson, that game he had in Gillette where he basically beat the Patriots. It took Tom Brady heroics to pull out that game. Yeah. The Patriots are very worried about Josh Allen's legs this week. You're going to see a lot of zone coverage from the New England Patriots. They do not want to turn their backs on Josh Allen. New England, they're typically a Belichick. They are typically a cover one, a hashtag man free. There you go. I'm doing that for you guys. They are a cover one team. They're not going to do it this week. They're going to spot drop. They're going to do a lot more of cover 3, cover 2. They want to keep their eyes on him. So that's going to open up some opportunities where if he can read the coverage, make the right sort of diagnosis of what zone coverage scheme they're in, he can make some plays in the passing game. And so that's going to be really something interesting to watch.
Yeah, and that's my big concern this weekend. Obviously, I agree with you that the legs are there to make plays against the Patriots. I've seen that against other teams. But my concern is him being a rookie. And Eric and Nate did some breakdowns that he is starting to read things a little bit better on the field. He's starting to go through full progressions on reads. I don't know that he's quite there yet to go up against Bill Belichick. And I think Belichick's going to throw some disguises at him, throw some things he hasn't seen in this league yet. And that is where I think he's going to get into trouble and kind of revert into the fastballs. We saw it a little bit in Detroit and guys didn't make plays on the ball. I think there's going to be some opportunities for the Patriots to get the ball back on defense.
Yeah. I mean, and we sort of know the sort of general record of rookie quarterbacks going up against Bill Belichick. Historically, rookie quarterbacks have struggled. And, like you said, look, there has definitely been some improvement in Josh Allen and sort of reading defenses and things like that. But there are still some times where he misses some things. I mean, last week against Detroit, they ran that sort of Ohio concept where you've got the out route from the slot, you get the go route on the outside. They ran that a couple of times. Then Detroit showed them a little palms or 2 trap coverage where the corner basically squatted and then trapped on the out route and then left open that go route along the sideline. And Allen missed a chance for a big play there. He flushed himself to the right when he didn't take that and nearly threw an interception. And so there are times when zone coverage looks will trip him up. And so when you're Brian Daboll, you've got to put together sort of that game plan that gives him some half-field reads, basically says, here are some mirrored route concepts. Here's a mirrored curl flat. Watch the Chicago Bears sometime. Aaron, we were talking before we came on that I do a ton of Mitchell Trubisky study here. And watch how Matt Nagy, he will call mirrored curl flat probably 7 to 10 times a game. Why? Because it's mirrored route concept. It gives you a defined half-field read. You see cover 3, you'll throw it weak. You see cover 2, you'll throw it strong. It's what you do. And, so they're going to have to work some stuff in where it basically says, look, as long as you make the right coverage read, you're going to have an option to choose from. You just have to read one side of the field. And so I would imagine that Daboll's going to have some of those concepts into the game plan where if they start seeing a lot of zone coverage, that's what they'll go to.
Well, it's interesting that you had brought up about the zone concept. And what I was surprised that Patricia did this past week was going through, and they actually had a safety spying him way more than what I anticipated. So a 3-man rush and then a 1-man spy. But instead of the 1-man spy being a front 7 guy, they brought an extra safety in to be able to spy him. And it speaks to, like you said, kind of the surprising athleticism that he has. But that was an interesting wrinkle that I was curious, when we don't have Chris Ivory and LaShawn McCoy, the obvious answer to that is, some read options, some draws, some more runs to be able to penalize them for having that 4th guy being a safety. But it was just an interesting look, and I'm really curious to see, not that I expect the same look from Belichick, but I'm curious to see how they're going to do that with, I know that there's been some question on the athleticism of the linebackers with the Patriots. So I'm curious to see how they're going to combat that to keep that in front of him. And is it just going to be zone? Is it going to be some spy? How are they going to approach that? And try to, like you said last week, one of the encouraging parts for Allen was it was 16 yards rushing. And he was able to play within himself. He didn't force it. He didn't try to break out there. And the vast majority of those actually were multiple quarterback sneaks and multiple kneel downs. I think he actually only ran the ball 5 or 6 at times of actual runs. It looked like 9 in the box score, but I think it was actually like 4 or 5 of actual runs. And I was impressed with him that he didn't fall back into, it's very easy, all of us personally, when you get good at something and people start telling you you're good at it, it's easy to want to default to that and to go back to, oh, this makes people excited about what I do, I want to show them I can do more of that. So I was impressed with him that he didn't force that and try to outrun a safety who is spying him. So I'm really curious to see what kind of wrinkles Belichick has for him to keep him contained.
And I think in terms of some wrinkles that you might see from New England, there are 2 that I'll throw out there. One is sort of a 3-2-6 package that when they played Indianapolis on that Thursday night game, they used this a lot. They used it a ton. I think Andrew Luck ended up attempting 36, 37 passes against this look, where they basically take Patrick Chung, move him down as a linebacker. So they can play basically a 3-3-5 look, but you've got Shun as your extra 2nd level defender. So he can sort of align down in the box. And they used Shun at times to sort of spy on Andrew Luck when it got to be in sort of a 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 situation. You're worried about his legs. So that's one thing you might see. Another thing you might see is that sort of radar or amoeba look. People are calling it different things that they use. They brought it out against Minnesota a couple of weeks ago, where they take Trey Flowers, who's probably their best edge defender. They align him as a 0 technique, head up on the center, and everybody else is moving around. So you've got Kyle Van Noy, Sean, Dante Hightower, Dietrich Wise, some of their other guys up front, John Simon, and they're all moving around, and you don't know who's coming, who's dropping, where they're going to be coming from. And the only person you can be guaranteed is going to be coming is Trey Flowers, their best edge rusher, who's now aligned on a 0 technique, who a center is probably not going to be used to blocking an edge defender on the inside. And so there are a number of times where, he beat Pat Elflein once with a, violent push-pull move, got into the backfield immediately, flushed Cousins. He had to basically turf it in the direction of Dalvin Cook. And so you might see that as well, where as a quarterback, it's an offensive line, whoever's making the calls up front, you don't know who to, align the protection to. You don't know who's coming or who's going. And so those are the 2 wrinkle type things you might see the Patriots pull out on Sunday.
Yeah, that terrifies me.
With the normal approach that we always hear, Brady takes away your best defender or your best offensive weapon. How crazy is it, Aaron, that might be Robert Foster?
It 100% is right now at this point in the season, which is totally crazy. An undrafted free agent like that. Obviously, Shady was back to practice, but he's not the best offensive player on this team because that line is so poor. He cannot get going, and I don't expect that that's going to change this week. So yeah, I mean, it's going to have to be a guy like Foster stepping up, because obviously we can't trust Zay Jones. We can't put the ball in his hands and trust him to do anything with it. And right now we can't trust Shady until he proves otherwise. So I think Bill Belichick's licking his lips a little bit that you have Josh Allen, who you can probably trick into making a few mistakes. Whether or not you can capitalize on those mistakes, you'll see. But then you also have Robert Foster, who is coming along nice, but that might be pretty easy to take away when you're looking at it on film, because there's really nothing else.
Hey, Mark, have you had a chance to take a look at anything? Do you think this is fool's gold? Do you think maybe we stumbled onto something here?
No, I think between both Foster and McKenzie to a certain extent as well, they kind of impressed me when I was watching that Detroit game. I mean, with McKenzie, you saw some change of direction ability. You saw him, used on tunnel screens at times. With Foster, again, there seems to be a growing relationship between him and Josh Allen and sort of the downfield passing game. And sometimes you sort of see that when you get younger quarterbacks that might be, second or third on the depth chart into training camp, they start to build these relationships with some of the younger guys because they're also running with the twos or running with the threes. And so when you've got a guy that you've been thrown to all the time, since August, it should be not, shouldn't be a surprise that, when both of them are on the field, he's going to look to that guy because he's sort of developed a relationship with him. I mean, you saw something similar with, Josh Rosen and Christian Kirk. They were running with the twos or the threes back when Arizona's training camp started. But when they both got onto the field, that's the guy that Rosen was looking to. And so, I think the relationship that those two are building is great. And, I think you are going to see, I was on with Kevin Masseri earlier today doing a Locked On Patriots Bills crossover. And he said, you guys are probably going to be building around, those two guys, Foster and McKenzie, as far as passing game targets. And I think watching those two guys the past couple of weeks, it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, it's been cautiously optimistic. I think at first I was very guarded in that, hey, he looks good compared to what we have, but right. Everybody temper your expectations here. I don't know what it is. And I am coming around now that, hey, maybe he is, something here. And at minimum, I think he's kind of a roster lock for next year to make the team. I don't want to go in with the expectation that, oh, good, we have a starting receiver locked up. I still want to be aggressive to build that. But I'm now excited for the fact that maybe a guy that was injured at Alabama in a, not exactly a passing heavy team, a lot of injuries, never got a real chance to get established, but is 6'2" and runs a 4.31 40. And, maybe he's finally capitalizing on his potential, as I think at one point was the number 2 high school receiver going into college his year as the number 2 recruit. So maybe he's finally pulling that together, and that would certainly be something nice to stumble on.
Yeah, it's nice for the Bills, who I thought were going to have 4 slots at wide receiver going next year that they had to fix. I think that we can at least say maybe they only have to bring in 2 guys next year to have a full core of receivers. So that's huge if those guys hit and stick on the roster going into next year. That's a big hit for Brandon Beane in the front office to not have to worry about bringing in 4 whole wide receiver room. Just bringing in 2 more guys, 3 more guys.
Yeah, we may need 4 offensive linemen, but we'll
maybe we may need 6.
All right. So, guys, I'm going to put you on the spot here. We have a game that is in New England. As Mark said, a legitimate must-win for the Patriots, something that the Bills, I think, have built up. And I've seen an odd amount of, I won't call it optimism, but a weird amount of, I guess, hope for Bills fans, but it is a 13.5 point line for a good reason. So what are you guys expecting going into this week? I'm going to say, I think it's going to be similar to the Monday Nighter. I think that we're going to see them keep it relatively close. I think that they're going to hang in there and give us some hope. And late in the third quarter, into the fourth quarter, they're finally going to get some of those matchups isolated, whether it's Raphael Bush, whether it's Corey Thompson, whether it's Tremaine Edmonds, that eventually we're going to see a couple of those drives where we just can't quite knock the ball down anymore, and they start pulling that together, and that eventually the Patriots pull it out. I don't think that they cover. I think that we're going to end up seeing something closer to maybe 20-10. But so that's my prediction. Aaron, what are you seeing?
I think it's going to be a similar type of game. I think that they'll keep me just interested enough to ignore the holiday party that I'm going to be going to while I watch the game and keep it just interesting enough for me. But I think maybe 21-17 final Patriots at the end. I just think until they prove otherwise, I will not bet against them.
Mark, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, I think from where I sit, Patriots fans are clinging to a bunch of things right now. And one of them is the fact that, look, during the Brady Belichick era, they have lost 4 games at home in December. One was in 2002. One was to Colin Kaepernick on a Sunday night game. One was to the Bills when they had clinched things in week 17. And so Garoppolo saw most of the snaps, in the second half. And then one was sort of a fluke game to Chip Kelly and the Eagles. And so, we're all grasping at straws right now in New England with all the things that have been going on. But I think when, push comes to shove, we sort of trust Brady and Belichick at home in December. And so I think, the Patriots, they win this. I'm looking at like 27-17. I think it's one of those games that it's going to, never really feel like it's totally in control, but you don't really feel like the Bills are going to do enough to pull it out. I think the Bills will do enough on offense to keep this game interesting. I think Josh Allen will make some splash type plays, but they'll hold them in check for the most part. So I do think New England pulls it out.
No, and I think honestly that's what this season's turned into is Aaron and I are great examples. Neither of us were big fans of Josh Allen, just like you said, but both of us have come around and now believe that maybe we have something here and that there's something exciting, and that gives us something to watch every week to have the excitement of what Josh Allen's development is. And honestly, if you're looking for a barometer, how he performs in his first test against Bill Belichick is going to be a real, litmus test of what his capabilities are and what he's done from a progression standpoint. And I don't expect it to be pretty, but I'm hopeful that he can at least make a good impression and start to establish what maybe he has the potential to become going forward.
Yeah, and not only a game against Belichick, but a game against Belichick in Foxborough in December where they need it. It's a lot of the times that at the end of the year, Bills go up to New England or they face New England, and the game doesn't matter all that much for New England. So it's nice that his development's come to this point, and I think this is a good potential showcase for him to, at least if he goes out and has a good game, Bills fans got to feel really good about that because this matters to New England.
All right. Well, as we pull things to a close here, let's go around the horn. Anything else we have going on? You guys can find me on Twitter at Greg Tomsett, GregTompsett. Love to follow back Bills fans, especially having fun around this holiday season. Looking forward to that. And I will actually be getting in the car with a 2-year-old and 5-year-old and my lovely wife to drive 13 hours from Atlanta to Buffalo tomorrow to enjoy the rest of my holiday vacation here next week. So wish me luck and hope that I can survive a fun trip in a car with the 2-year-old and the 5-year-old for 13 hours.
I hope there's a big glass of bourbon waiting for you on the other end of that trip.
I can't wait. Aaron, where can the people find you?
At Aaron Quinn 716, engaging with every Bills fan that I can and every hot take that I can find. I like to get into those. So come find me there, and you can find me here on the podcast with Greg throughout the rest of the season. As Greg mentioned, we got some really cool content that we're working on to keep you guys through the off season because it's going to be a big one.
Excellent. And Mark, any last items you want the people to watch out for from you?
I'm going to be praying for you on that drive tomorrow, my friend. That's all I can really say about that. Easiest way to find me is, again, at Mark Schofield on Twitter. I'm not a crazy lunatic Patriots fan, so I'm pretty nice to get along with, I think, but maybe not. We'll see. But we'll see how Sunday turns around. How about that?
You certainly have your moments. No, honestly, it's been great, and we've had a lot of fun having you on the show 2 times now. So really appreciate you giving us the time here and having a great time. Wish you all the best, and for all of our sake, I hope we get an entertaining game on Sunday.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you, guys. For anyone we don't talk to, we'll have another recap here on Sunday night so we can wish everyone a Merry Christmas at that time. But anyone who doesn't listen, hope you have a wonderful time with family and friends. Enjoy this holiday season. Tell the people around you that you love them, and go Bills.